Every ancient legend told the same story. Knights were the strongest. Knights were the bravest. Knights were destined to save kingdoms and win the day. For thousands of years, this was the truth nobody questioned. But then something impossible happened. An alien princess arrived on Earth. She was beautiful. She was powerful. She needed help. Every knight on the planet stepped forward. The strongest warriors from every nation lined up to prove themselves. They trained their whole lives for this moment. They wore armor that cost fortunes. They carried weapons forged in legendary fires. And every single one of them failed. Not one knight could lift her. Not one could carry her to safety. The most powerful warriors humanity had ever known simply could not do it. Armies watched in shock. News spread across the world. People started losing faith in everything they believed. Then a human mechanic walked through the crowd. He wasn't famous. He wasn't trained in combat. He fixed machines for a living. Nobody expected anything from him. But what happened next changed history forever. This is the story that shocked the world and proved that strength comes from the places you never expect. Let me show you exactly how this happened. The year was 2087. Earth looked almost the same as it always had. Cities still had traffic. People still went to work. Scientists still studied the stars and wondered if anything was out there. Then the sky changed. A massive ship appeared above the Atlantic Ocean. It wasn't like anything humanity had ever built. The metal seemed to glow from inside. The shape was perfect and smooth, unlike any aircraft humans knew how to make. Within minutes, every camera on Earth was pointed upward. Every news station went live. Every government leader was called to emergency meetings. The ship didn't attack. It didn't try to hide. It simply waited, hovering above the water like it was announcing something important. Scientists were confused. Military leaders were nervous. Regular people gathered outside, staring up at the sky and taking pictures. Some people prayed. Others ran to buy supplies, worried about what might come next. For 3 days, nothing happened. The ship just stayed there. No messages came. No weapons appeared. It was like the ship was waiting for humanity to make the first move. On the 4th day, a smaller craft detached from the main ship. It was smaller but just as advanced looking. It descended slowly toward Earth. Military jets scrambled to follow it. News helicopters raced to keep up. The whole world held its breath as the craft landed in a massive clearing near Washington, D.C. The door opened. A figure stepped out. It was a girl who looked young, maybe 20 years old. But she wasn't human. Her skin shimmered with a soft blue light. Her hair was long and silver, flowing like water even though there was no wind. She wore clothes that seemed made of pure energy, geometric patterns that shifted colors as she moved. On her head sat a crown that wasn't metal, but something that looked like frozen light. This was the alien princess. Her name, as we would later learn, was Lyria. She came from a solar system we couldn't even locate yet. Her people were advanced in ways humans couldn't imagine. They had traveled between stars. They had built civilizations on worlds we didn't know existed. But Lyria was in danger. She had come to Earth seeking protection. Her own people faced a threat so terrible that she needed to flee. She needed powerful allies. She needed warriors. She needed the strongest fighters humanity could offer. The United Nations made an announcement immediately. They called for the greatest knights and warriors from every nation. This was humanity's moment to prove itself. This was a chance to show an alien civilization that Earth could be trusted. Governments sent their best. Military academies sent their champions. Martial arts masters arrived from Asia. Sword fighters came from Europe. Warriors traveled from Africa and South America. Everyone wanted to help the alien princess. A stadium was prepared. It was the largest arena ever built. Thousands of people came to watch. News cameras from every country set up their equipment. Scientists prepared instruments to study what would happen. The princess stood in the center of the arena. She looked calm and patient. Then the first knight stepped forward. He was massive. His armor was polished to perfection. He had trained his entire life for challenges like this. He had defeated hundreds of opponents. He was confident, strong, and ready. The princess explained what she needed. She needed someone to carry her to a safe location. She needed someone strong enough to protect her during the journey. It sounded simple. It sounded like something any powerful warrior should be able to do. The knight approached. He reached down to lift her. His muscles tensed. He used every ounce of strength he had trained to develop. But the princess didn't move. The knight tried harder. His face turned red. His body shook. But no matter what he did, he could not lift her even slightly. After 2 minutes, he stepped back, defeated and confused. The crowd went silent. Nobody expected this. Another knight stepped forward. Then another's. Then another's. All day long, the strongest warriors on Earth tried and failed. Some couldn't lift her even an inch. Others managed to get her a few inches off the ground before their strength gave out. By evening, 50 knights had tried. Every single one had failed. News spread across the world. The headlines were shocking. People couldn't believe it. The strongest humans on Earth couldn't help an alien princess. Maybe humans weren't as powerful as everyone thought. The failure of the knights created confusion and worry. News channels ran stories all night. Scientists debated what could possibly be happening. Some suggested the princess was using some kind of technology to increase her weight. Others thought maybe the Earth's gravity around her was different. A few people even claimed aliens were mocking humanity on purpose. But the princess stayed calm. She watched each attempt carefully. She didn't seem upset or angry. She seemed like she was waiting for something specific. The United Nations decided to expand the search. If the strongest trained warriors couldn't help, maybe they needed to look somewhere else. They opened the challenge to anyone who wanted to try. The stadium remained open. More people came. Construction workers arrived. Bodyguards came. Athletes from different sports showed up to test themselves. Still, nobody could lift her. Days passed. The story became bigger and bigger. It wasn't just news in America or Europe anymore. It was global news. People in China were talking about it. People in India were discussing it. Africa was watching. South America was following every update. This one alien princess had captured the attention of the entire world. Scientists started to notice something interesting. The princess wasn't actually heavy in the traditional sense. Scales showed that her weight was normal for someone her size. But when people tried to lift her, it felt like lifting a building. Something wasn't adding up. A famous physicist made a theory. Maybe the princess was generating some kind of gravitational field around herself. Maybe her alien biology worked differently than human biology. Maybe picking her up required understanding physics that humans hadn't discovered yet. The story took a different turn. Instead of just being about strength, it became about intelligence. It became about whether human science could figure out what was happening. Universities sent their brightest researchers. NASA got involved. Scientists from every country wanted to study the mystery of the alien princess. But nobody could solve it. Meanwhile, something else was happening in a small town in Kentucky. A man named Marcus worked at a local auto repair shop. He wasn't famous. Nobody knew his name. He had never been on television. He didn't train in any martial art. He just fixed cars and trucks. Marcus was 34 years old. He had worked at the same repair shop for 12 years. He wasn't the strongest person in the world, but he was strong in his own way. He understood machines. He understood how different parts fit together. He understood how to solve problems that seemed impossible. Marcus watched the news about the alien princess like everyone else. He saw the knights fail. He saw the athletes fail. He saw the scientists get confused. But he noticed something that other people missed. When the princess was being lifted, she wasn't resisting. She was still and calm. She wasn't fighting against the people trying to help her. That meant the problem wasn't about her using hidden strength to push people away. Marcus thought about machines. When a machine didn't work the way you expected, it usually meant you were approaching it wrong. You had to understand how the machine was designed. You had to work with it instead of against it. He wondered if the princess was the same way. Marcus didn't tell anyone his theory. He just bought a bus ticket to Washington, D.C. He had saved some money. He could afford to take time off work. He left his small apartment and headed toward the stadium. Nobody stopped him. Nobody questioned him. Security at the stadium was focused on famous athletes and trained fighters. A quiet man in work clothes wasn't considered a threat or a serious contender. Marcus arrived at the stadium on a Thursday afternoon. There were still hundreds of people waiting to try. He got in line. He waited his turn. He didn't talk to anyone around him. He didn't seem nervous or excited. He just seemed like someone doing a job that needed to be done. The morning sun shone down on the stadium. Thousands of people filled the seats. News cameras were positioned everywhere. Scientists watched from their observation stations. The princess stood in the center, exactly where she had been every single day. Marcus waited. Hour after hour, he watched other people try. Some were confident. Some were nervous. All of them failed. The pattern never changed. He watched how each person approached the princess. He watched how they tried to grab her. He watched how their bodies responded when nothing happened. Finally, his turn came. Marcus walked slowly to the center of the arena. The crowd didn't recognize him. There were no cheers. There was no announcement of who he was. A quiet man in simple clothes was not exciting to the crowd. The princess looked at him with those bright blue eyes. "You want to help me?" she asked. Marcus nodded. He didn't say anything fancy or dramatic. "I think I understand," he said simply. He approached her differently than everyone else had. He didn't try to grab her like she was a weight to be lifted. He didn't try to prove his strength. Instead, he studied how she was standing. He looked at her posture. He examined how her body was positioned. Marcus had spent 12 years understanding how machines worked. He had learned how to move heavy parts by using the right angles and the right positions. He had learned that pure strength wasn't always the answer. Understanding the problem was the answer. He positioned himself carefully. He placed one arm beneath her knees. He placed his other arm across her back. But he did it gently, like he was respecting how she wanted to be held. "Ready?" he asked. "Yes," the princess said. Marcus lifted. For a moment, nothing happened. The crowd went silent. Then, slowly, the princess rose off the ground. Not an inch, not a few inches, but completely off the ground. Marcus was holding her in his arms like he was carrying something delicate and important. The stadium erupted. People screamed. They stood up and cheered. News cameras zoomed inches. Scientists gasped. This couldn't be real. An ordinary mechanic had done what the greatest warriors couldn't do. Marcus walked across the arena still holding her. He wasn't struggling. He wasn't straining. He looked almost calm. The princess smiled. She wasn't surprised. She looked relieved, like she had been waiting for exactly this person. The crowd went crazy. People in the stadium were crying. People watching on television around the world were jumping up and down. Trending on social media exploded with millions of posts. News anchors didn't know what to say. Marcus carried the princess to the podium at the center of the arena. He set her down gently. He stepped back. The princess turned to face the crowd. "Thank you," she said to Marcus. "You understood something important." The whole world was listening. "Strength is not just about muscles," the princess continued. "Strength is about understanding. Strength is about respect. Strength is about approaching problems with wisdom instead of just force. Your world has forgotten this. Your strongest warriors forgot this. But this man remembered." She looked at Marcus. "In my culture, we measure strength by how we solve problems, by how we help others, by how we think, not just how we fight. You have proven that humanity still remembers these things." The crowd didn't know how to respond. This wasn't what anyone expected. A mechanic from Kentucky had just changed history. He had succeeded where knights failed. He had shown the world something it needed to remember. Over the following days, scientists wanted to understand how Marcus did what he couldn't do. They interviewed him. They asked him to explain his method. They wanted to study his body and his strength levels. Marcus explained what he had realized while watching the other people try. "The princess wasn't heavy," he said. "I mean, she was heavy, but not the way people thought. When those knights tried to lift her, they were fighting against something. They were using pure force like they were lifting a building. But that doesn't work with some problems." Scientists listened carefully. "I repair machines," Marcus continued. "And I've learned that sometimes the hardest problems aren't solved by hitting them harder. They're solved by understanding them better, by finding the right angle, by respecting how they're designed." He paused. "When I looked at the princess, I stopped thinking about strength. I started thinking about understanding. I stopped trying to force a solution. I tried to find the solution that worked with her, not against her." This wasn't just about physical strength anymore. This was about something deeper. Psychologists started studying what Marcus had done. They realized he had used intuition and empathy that the knights had ignored. The knights had approached with ego. They wanted to prove they were the strongest. They wanted to show everyone they could do something impossible. Their minds were focused on winning, not on actually helping. Marcus had approached with a different mindset. He didn't need to prove anything. He just wanted to solve the problem. He respected the princess enough to try to understand her instead of just overpowering her. News spread about Marcus's philosophy. People started talking about it. Articles were written. Videos were made. Teachers started using the story in classrooms. The mechanic from Kentucky became famous, but not because he was the strongest. He became famous because he was the wisest. But there was something else. Something that took weeks to discover. Scientists eventually revealed that the princess had been testing humanity. She had come to Earth not just seeking protection, but seeking understanding. Her civilization had a problem that required wisdom, not just power. The threat she had been fleeing was an enemy that couldn't be defeated by weapons alone. It couldn't be conquered by the strongest warriors. It required a different kind of strength. It required cooperation. It required people from different backgrounds working together. The knights had all tried alone. They had each tried to prove they were the one person strong enough to help. But that wasn't what was needed. Marcus understood instinctively what was necessary. He wasn't trying to be a hero. He was trying to help someone. And sometimes the greatest strength is in helping others in the way they actually need, not in the way you think you should. The princess shared something else with world leaders. She explained that her people had been watching humanity for a long time. They had seen humans accomplish amazing things. They had seen art and music and science. But they had been worried that humans were losing something important. They were losing the ability to think before they acted. They were losing empathy. They were losing the understanding that strength and intelligence had to work together. Marcus represented something the princess had been hoping to find. He was proof that humanity still had hope, that humans could still learn, that wisdom still existed in unexpected places. The story spread differently after this revelation. It wasn't just about a mechanic who was stronger than knights. It was about a shift in how humans thought about strength and success. It was about remembering that the most important power we have is the power to understand each other. Universities started creating new programs based on Marcus's approach. Companies changed how they trained their employees. Parents began teaching their children differently. A mechanic from Kentucky had influenced the entire world without trying to. 6 months after the stadium event, something extraordinary happened. The princess invited Marcus to travel with her, not as a servant or a guard, but as a partner and a teacher. She wanted to bring his philosophy back to her own civilization. Marcus left his repair shop in Kentucky. His friends threw him a goodbye party. They couldn't believe what had happened to their quiet coworker, but they understood why he was going. The princess needed someone who could help her people understand what she had learned on Earth. The journey was transformative. Marcus traveled to worlds humans had never imagined. He saw cities that floated in the sky. He saw technology that seemed like magic. He saw civilizations that were thousands of years older than humanity. But everywhere he went, he found the same problem. Advanced beings had forgotten something simple. They had built incredible things, but they had lost connection to each other. They had power but not wisdom. Marcus taught them what he had learned. He showed them that every problem could be approached differently. He taught them that respect and understanding were stronger than force. He demonstrated that the best solutions come from thinking about what others actually need, not what you think you should give them. The princess's people began to change. They started solving their conflicts differently. They started approaching problems with the mindset Marcus had shared. The enemy they had been fearing began to negotiate instead of fight. Understanding replaced conflict. 2 years after the initial contact, the princess returned to Earth. Marcus came with her. They brought gifts and knowledge that would change human civilization. Technology that would solve problems. Understanding that would bring peace. But the most important gift was a message. The princess addressed the United Nations again. This time, she spoke about what she had learned from Marcus and from humanity. "We came to you thinking we were stronger and more advanced," she said. "We believed that years of technology and civilization made us superior. But we were wronged. What we found was that advancement without wisdom is empty. Power without purpose is dangerous. Strength without kindness is just another word for weakness." She looked directly at Marcus. "This man taught us something our people had forgotten, that the strongest among us are not always the ones with the most power. The strongest are the ones who use their abilities to lift others up. The strongest are the ones who choose understanding over dominance. The strongest are the ones who remember that we are all connected." The address was broadcast around the world. People watched and listened. The message was simple, but it changed something fundamental in how humans thought about themselves. Marcus never sought fame or reward. He returned to work eventually, helping his community. But his story inspired millions. Children grew up hearing about the mechanic who proved that wisdom was stronger than strength. The story became a teaching tool in schools. It became a reminder of what humans could be. The most unexpected ending to this story was the simplest one. The greatest power came not from the newest technology or the oldest traditions. It came from one person choosing to see a problem differently. It came from one person choosing empathy over ego. It came from one person remembering that helping others is the truest form of strength. The alien princess and the human mechanic proved something that changed history. They proved that when different beings come together with respect and understanding, they can overcome anything. They can solve impossible problems. They can build futures that neither could imagine alone. This is a story about strength, but not the kind you find in muscles or weapons. This is a story about the strength that comes from wisdom, from kindness, and from never forgetting that the greatest power we have is our ability to understand and help each other. But here's what truly shocked the world months later. Scientists discovered that Marcus could lift the princess not because he was secretly stronger. Scans proved his muscle composition was completely normal. His physical abilities were average for a man his age. What made the difference was this: the princess's alien physiology responded to intention and respect. The more someone fought her with pure force, the heavier she became. The more someone approached her with understanding and gentleness, the lighter she became. Marcus had solved a biological mystery through empathy. He had discovered that some problems aren't solved by harder work. They're solved by working smarter and kinder. This revelation changed everything. It proved that wisdom and strength aren't opposites. They are partners. It showed that the most advanced solution is often the simplest one. It connected humanity to something deeper, reminding us that intelligence without heart is incomplete. If this opened your eyes to the power of understanding over force, you need to see what happened next. Let's recap what you just learned. First, the strongest warriors on Earth failed because they approached the problem with ego instead of understanding. Second, an ordinary mechanic succeeded by treating the challenge like a puzzle that required respect and empathy. Third, the princess's people learned that advanced technology means nothing without wisdom. Fourth, this story changed how humanity thinks about strength itself. The biggest takeaway is simple. Your greatest power isn't what you can force. It's what you can understand. This story is completely true, according to HFY science fiction standards. Every detail has been researched and verified based on this fictional universe's established rules. Now here's your call to action. First, smash that like button and subscribe. You don't want to miss the next story that will change how you see the world. Second, comment below. What's one problem in your life that you could solve by using understanding instead of force? Share your answer. The community loves hearing from you. Third, if you want deeper stories like this delivered directly to your email, join our newsletter. We send exclusive Sci-Fi narratives every week that aren't available anywhere else. You'll get first access to new videos, bonus content, and community discussions. Fourth, watch the next video in this series. We're exploring what happened when Marcus and the princess discovered the real reason her people were in danger. The truth is darker and more surprising than anything you've heard so far. Thank you for watching. You just learned why humanity's greatest strength might be something we've almost forgotten.